Good afternoon. This is Perrin Cornell with Coldwell Banker here in Wenatchee, Washington. I'm a broker with Coldwell Banker, have been for a number of years. And I'm sitting with Randy Haywood. Randy is from Wenatchee. He has professional home inspections. He's a home inspector I've been using since about 2004. And I think he knows his job and he knows his business. And I can't recommend it any better, I don't think. So with that introduction, Randy, why don't you tell us just a little bit about your background and any licenses or anything that you have to have?
Yeah, well, thank you, Perrin, for having me this morning. You pretty much covered it. I've been doing home inspections in Chelan Douglas County mainly for the last 32 years. I do cover, outlying areas such as Grant County. We do a lot of stuff up in Okanagan.
Yeah.
But yeah, 32 years of experience. It was 2004, I believe, that they came out in Washington State requiring licensing for home inspectors, and anybody after that date would have to do a degree of schooling, field work behind an inspector, and then some quantifying tests to become a home inspector. And then, of course, your insurances and binders and stuff.
Sure.
So,
Sure.
yeah.
Okay. Um, do you still, at one point, you used to have a USDA license also for the pest inspection. Do you still do that or no? Or
I still have Washington. I still have a Department of Agricultural. It's called a WDO inspection
yes.
report, SPI, structural pest inspector. It's not required to be a home inspector. It just is required if you're going to identify what kind of pest it is or what kind of damage it is. So a home inspector, really, if he's doing a thorough inspection of a crawl space or someplace, he's going to see damaged wood, or he's going to see something that looks like an infestation. At that point, he's going to call for an SPI. I would say most of the inspectors, the greatest number of inspectors in Chelan Douglas County, out of I think the 14 there are, I think there's only 2 that are still SPIs.
Oh, okay.
Just
Interesting. I didn't
because
realize that.
nobody really does pest inspections anymore. Back in the day, if you remember, everybody was calling for I mean, if they didn't have a home inspection, they at least had a pest, what was
A
called
clear pest.
yeah, clear pest. And there was really no such thing ever as a clear pest, but it was a WDO, wood destroying organism report, presence, no presence,
hmm
but that's been done away with. I don't even remember the last time I did a WDO report. I mean,
Okay.
it was like last year sometime.
Well, I know normally now you if you see it, you tell me about it, and then we have a pest guy.
I'll list it in the report and recommend an SPI come out. And what they'll do
Yeah.
is just call out a pest company to come out and assess the need for treatment,
Right.
the repair. And that really is probably the most money savings and the most, so it's more kind of just a thing where there's a comfort for the people knowing that you're licensed and
Sure.
so they know that you're actually calling out, powder post beetle rather than dry rot.
Okay. What about in general, a home inspection? I mean, there's a lot of stuff goes in it, but in general, what do you cover? Do you go upstairs? Do you go downstairs? Do you do the roof? Do you do the crawl space? All of the above?
The thing about a home inspection that makes it the best quality is that it's done systematically. So an inspector really should have a system that he does and follow it pretty much every time possible. But it covers the exterior, the interior, the attics, the crawl spaces, the sub areas, electrical, plumbing, heating, everything that you could possibly look at in a home, and the more the home's set up for the inspection, and the clearer it is, the better the inspection is going to be. But a good inspection should take about 2.5 to 3 hours on an average home. It should be picture documented. And all aspects of the home. And the thing that's available to everybody, to realtors and to the buyer, is that the standard operation of the SOP for home inspectors on what they're supposed to look at. And in my case, it's included in the report. Each page basically lines out
Mhm.
what we are going to look at. But it's just a very thorough evaluation on a visual inspection of the home, to give them an idea of what it is they're buying. So they're
Sure.
educated. It's an
Sure.
educational process.
Well, actually, that was one of the things I was going to mention. There's about 4 phases to an inspection, and the last one the last one that I listed of the 4 is education, because it's education of the new home buyer. But there's some other stuff too, like there's a component I like to refer to it as critical or oh my God. Those are the things that you really got to get fixed. And then there's the stuff that I call basically deferred maintenance or nice to haves, sticking doors, stuff, and then there's the long term for the homeowner. So it kind of just briefly, but kind of take us through each of those kind of the things that you might see, what might be typical, what's atypical, something like that.
So what you and I are both experiencing, and you're doing more readily, more recently, is pre-inspections, which is a seller doing an inspection prior to putting the home on the market.
Mm-hmm.
That's probably the best timing for an inspection. So everybody is educated and knows the knowledge. So the seller knows what it is they're selling, and as is in the contract now has a meaning. You take that home inspection and put it with the seller's disclosure, and you got full disclosure. But if you choose to go with the buyer's side of it, the one thing we have to keep in mind that, we experience on both sides is, and that's a buyer coming in and trying to utilize the home inspection as a negotiation tool. And that's truly not what it's for. It's meant as an educational tool, so you know what you're buying. Nobody wants to buy somebody else's problems, but the buyer beware type mentality is always been a concern of mine, and I think that's what brought home inspections into the forefront was, buyer's due diligence. So where there's this adversarial, well, you need to have an inspection, you need to do this because, you need to find out what's wrong rather than it just being disclosed. So, you know, I just as long as it's a good upfront, thorough inspection that everybody's aware of, it's a wonderful tool.
Yeah, it is. It really
And
is.
the only one I didn't hear you mention was, you mentioned the critical stuff, but the key element too is health and safety,
Yes.
making sure that health and safety is taken care of so they understand it. But education of materials and stuff, none of this stuff means anybody's going to fix anything. It's just education, so you know what you're buying.
And then if it is critical or viewed as important, it can become part of the negotiation. But I
Right.
agree with you. It's basically let the person know what it is they're buying.
And
Uh,
that's usually what those are usually the situations where all of a sudden you can see the deer in the headlights of the seller going like, I had no idea.
yeah.
Because oh my gosh, now they own a problem. And I understand with the current market, passing information back and forth between sellers and buyers has become more difficult.
Yes.
I've noticed that from afar watching the real estate industry, but it is kind of that concerning thing. That's where the pre-inspect or the seller inspection always beneficial because things are brought out in the forefront in a time that they can be handled before there's a deal on the table.
Okay. What, in your experience, what are some of the most common things that you run into I mean, watching your inspections and other people's inspections, there's two or three items that always show up almost forever, and they're probably
Yeah,
easily
yeah.
taken care of by the homeowner.
Depending on the age of the home, one of the things that's common to every age of home, and that's exterior. Exterior, people just, they do a lot of stuff to beautify their house, through landscaping and stuff, and they cause themselves more problems. So water around the home probably is the key number one element that always seems to be a problem. Drainage, water next to the home, sprinklers, bushes, and foliage, and stuff like that. Those are almost, you can almost just leave that in the boilerplate in your report because almost every house, is going to have that issue. But then depending on the vintage, there are certain houses that had siding issues because of failures or when they had plumbing issues because of failures. Older homes, knob and tube, asbestos, so it all depends on the vintage of home. But, looking at a 2022 home, you're basically just making sure that everything's working correctly,
Hmm.
and done correctly. You're kind of just a third set of eyes, and we find things that are wrong, even new construction.
Well, I think actually you and I did one time. It was on brand new construction, and as I remember, the builder was, "What are you doing an inspection for?" But anyway, we did the inspection. This was back about 2004, 2005, and if you recall, the guest bath in the hallway was just a half bath, so it was just a toilet and a commode, and the commode just vented into the crawl space. They hadn't connected it to
Hadn't
the
connected to the pipe. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah,
And that kind of stuff does happen, and the thing is after the inspector comes out for the county or the city, you know, if something gets done, like an insulator breaks a pipe or something, do you think he's going to go to the builder and tell him that he broke a pipe? No. If he accidentally, like he's climbing over a pipe and he breaks it loose, and he doesn't report it, there's a problem. Or, you know, if the plumber cuts through a floor joist, you know, when
Mhm.
he's putting in something, or the electrician's wire gets caught in something, you know, I mean, there's just so much that can happen. Or the cider goes in and sides right over where the vent covers were to the crawl space. That
There
happened
you
a
go.
couple weeks ago, and there were 4 vents that weren't installed. And so they had to go back and put those in. But I mean, it already had its final and was going to close in 3 days.
Yeah.
You know, is that a huge problem? Well, long term it could be, you know, with
Yeah.
mold, mildew, and moisture issues. So
Mhm.
yeah, it's an interesting industry. I really enjoy it. Each home brings its own iniquities, but you know, you guys are brokering between somebody buying a house and selling a house, and the other person being happy at what they're getting.
Sure. And it's important. Um, excuse me. One of the on some of the more common things too, isn't there's a lot of common electrical issues that come up.
Depending on the age of the home, yeah, depending
Mhm.
on the age of the home, you know, because you have those transitional periods where you have the health and safety components such as GFI. Then as we get into the later generation homes around the 2003 vintage, we start finding arc fault protection coming into place. Excuse me. The thing that we notice is, you know, and then the phasing out of types of refrigerants like R22. So um, you know, it doesn't always have to do with the age of the home. I mean, health and safety can be grandfather claused into a bit, but I mean, you want a full plate glass window on your door with your grandkids around that's not safety glass? I mean, if you don't educate somebody on that, you know, and a kid goes through it and gets cut up, you know, it could have been safety glass. So you change out the door. You know, those are the things, you know, that a 1950s and a
Mhm.
2022, you know, they're just different, you know.
Sure.
So I
Sure.
mean, educational, you know, and if they don't want to change it, okay, that's great. Yeah.
What's if you even remember, what was the oldest house you ever did?
I did one in Seattle that was 1879.
Holy cow. Okay.
An 1879 home is the oldest one I did. Yeah.
Yeah. And do you have any worse memories of one or two that you, oh my gosh, how do we get here?
I can't remember if it was you or I, and it's one that sticks out of my. If it was you or it was a number of years ago. I did one up on Okanagan Street, and it was an apartment building, and it was. Have you ever? I mean, there was a movie on called The 13 Sins or something like that with Kevin Spacey and stuff, and Brad Pitt. But it was this house. The realtor walked out almost ready to throw up, and I wouldn't inspect the apartment. It was that bad. It's the
Oh
first
my,
time I looked at an apartment and said, I'm not going to do it. I took a few quick pictures and just left the house, and somebody was living in it
yeah.
in an
Oh
apartment.
wow.
So,
Oh wow.
you know,
Okay.
apartments are usually worse than houses, but I mean, I've had some pretty ugly ones, a lot of sewer disconnects and stuff like that. But just for grossness, I think that was it.
Now you have just so that everybody knows, you in a normal inspection, you're going to be on the roof, you're going to be in the attic, and
Mhm.
you're going to be in the crawl space,
Right.
if there is a crawl space, and then you're also in the rest of the house. So it I can understand when you say that it has to be systematic, so that you don't just hop from one to the other and then realize you got to go back.
Yeah,
Um,
you really should do that. I mean, my system is I do the whole exterior of the house on the perimeter, and sometimes it'll be a 2 pass because you need to look down and up, and you could easily miss something. Then
mhm.
it's a jump up on the roof and get the roof done. Then it's a come in the house, and then what I try to do is I start on the upper levels and I work my way down, because if there's a leak on an upper level or something, I'll find it on the way down.
Yeah,
And then I do my systems as I go along. You know, I'll do the heating system, I'll do the electrical system, but the whole house is a major component. So you're doing stuff outside, and then you note things on the outside that you have to look for on the inside, like where vents come out, or you
sure.
know, and then when you get inside, you know, you see where the vent pipes come out for the gas heating system, or you know, how the electrical comes into the house, possible wiring size, you know, and then you look at the
Mhm.
electrical system inside. So it all ends up at the end bleeding together and making this full component.
Sure.
Uh, and it makes a whole storyline. It completes the story. The sad ones are when the house is in such disrepair, or it's been so modified that you're like, I can't finish the book.
Yeah,
You know,
right,
you need to bring
right.
somebody else in because it's not, you know, and those are very rare, but that
And,
it
oh, I'm sure
happens.
they do happen. Yeah. Okay, well, but we're about out of town here or about out of time rather. So why don't you tell us again who you are and who you work for and how to get hold of
Yeah.
you?
Yeah. So again, Randy Haywood with Professional Home Inspections, 32 years experience. I'm pretty confident I've got the most experience in the 3 major counties surrounding us. I'm the old guy now. And so you can reach us at professionalhomeinspections.biz online at the website, or our phone number is 509-662-0733 if you're looking for our landline, and 509-670-4415 is my direct line on my cell phone. You're always usually able to get me or leave a voicemail.
Okay.
And we do texts and stuff. Yeah. So
Sure.
we would love to help you out.
Well, super. Thank you very much. I appreciate your time, and we'll see you on another home inspection. Might have one coming up this week for you.
Would love to help you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Perrin.